Rather than spending hours and hours scouring the web trying to find an unbiased source of world news, the search is over once you discover Straight Arrow News. Whether you're checking out the app on your mobile device or on a browser on a PC, Straight Arrow News has just the facts right at your fingertips, without concern of being lied to and manipulated like the mainstream media so often has done to us. Regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, Straight Arrow News has something for you, and it's a place you can trust to find all the information you need. Head on over to san.com/geekdom or click the link in the description and see for yourself. So let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Daniel RPK, the scooper who's I think best known for his inside information and leaks about the MCU, has dropped a gem. So Sonic 4 was announced and scheduled to come out March 19th, 2027. That came out I think last week. And if you remember actually before I go any further, if you haven't seen Sonic 3, this is going to contain some spoilers for the mid-credit scene of Sonic 3. So be aware of that. So most people have seen it by now, but if you haven't, now you know. So in the mid-credit scene of Sonic 3, Sonic ends up in this forest and he's surrounded by these metal Sonics. They're all over him, like an army of them. And then Amy appears with her hammer to save him. And that's the mid-credit scene. That's the teaser for the next Sonic film, which as of right now is called Sonic the Hedgehog 4. I hope they still keep the name as Sonic 4, because I don't like when movies, after they pass the third movie, they start getting cute with the names. You know what I mean? How sometimes movies do that. Just keep it Sonic 4, okay? Anyways, so according to Daniel RPK, Sonic 4 will reportedly feature time travel elements. Now, if you know the origin of the Amy character, this makes perfect sense. So way back in the day, before even Sonic 2 had come out, Sega CD put out a game called Sonic CD, which many considered to be one of the more slept on Sonic games. Now, I have gotten to play it, and I don't think it's as good as Sonic 2 or 3 and Knuckles, but I would put it above 1. But one of the cool things about that game was there is time travel in that game. So the zones that you go to have like future and past variants. That's where they're getting this idea from. So logically, if you're following along with what was, established in Sonic CD, because even though these movies are borrowing from new lore, they're also borrowing from the old lore too, the older Sega Genesis era stuff, this would make sense. Now, some people are probably going to say, oh, time travel, now you know they're out of ideas. And that's not true, because when the video games were coming out, Sonic CD predates Sonic 2, which means that they had the idea for the time travel story even before Sonic 2 had come out. So the second game, the real second Sonic game, is Sonic CD, not counting, some of the ports and whatnot. We're talking about from the Sega Genesis array, like from those games. Even though it was Sega CD, it was an add-on to the Genesis. So this makes logical sense. However, the question I have is, how do you incorporate that into a movie? For a video game, it's cool. How do you incorporate it into a movie? Well, it sounds like what I think they're probably going to do is they're probably going to do a story where Sonic and Amy have an adventure, probably just them two, while Knuckles and Tails are trying to find Sonic. Maybe they get stuck somewhere in the timeline. And this could be how they bring Jim Carrey back. Instead of Jim Carrey playing Dr. Robotnik, Eggman, he would play an ancestor. Therefore, you continue that going. It wouldn't be the last time he did that either, because he played his own grandfather in Sonic 3. So it would just follow along with what they've already established. So Sonic 4 could end up being a Sonic Amy solo story based on Sonic 3, with Tails and Knuckles eventually joining them. But obviously what this does tell me too is they are drifting further and further away from having the human characters involved, which, it seems like that's what's been going on, and logically it somewhat makes sense, even though I really like the buddy cop vibes of the first movie. Now, what they're probably going to end up doing, much like with Robotnik, I would not be surprised in the slightest if Sonic ends up meeting an ancestor of Tom. Same actor, same everything, but it's an ancestor. This is the kind of stuff that, like, Back to the Future did and other time travel stories. I can see all of that being incorporated into Sonic the Hedgehog 4. Now, the big one that I think they're going to be having in their back pocket, which, if they're ever going to do it, it's going to be in this movie, is that they're probably going to debut Silver the Hedgehog. For those who don't know, Silver the Hedgehog is very much like Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. Time travel character. Obviously, if you've got time travel already established through Sonic CD, it would just make logical sense to bring in Silver. I think the fans of old Sonic are going to appreciate Amy and the time travel aspects from that era. And I think the fans of Silver the Hedgehog are going to appreciate the modern stuff. Although, it's just funny to me because, and I've said this before, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and 3 are better live-action Dragon Ball movies than the actual live-action Dragon Ball movie from 2009, Dragon Ball Evolution, by leaps and bounds. So now you're going to introduce a character from the future, Silver, who's probably going to reveal that the Metal Sonics are probably from the future, and they terrorize his world just like Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. So it just seems to all kind of make sense, right? It all seems to fit. It all seems to make sense that this is actually the next logical leap forward. Like the next leap forward as far as who they're going to introduce next. You got Knuckles in the second one, Shadow in the third one, Silver in the fourth one. What about after? There's still a lot of characters in the Sonic verse they can bring in. So I do wonder if Shadow and Silver will have a scene together. I really hope so. And if it's going to end up being Sonic, Amy, Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, and Silver against an army of Mecha Sonics, or Metal Sonics, that is, I'm down. That sounds like a good time. I'm fine with it. I mean, ultimately, I am A-okay with that being the story. I'm curious about where Shadow's going to fit into all this. Will he have his own story? Will he be going back there with Sonic? Because obviously, Shadow was not in Sonic CD. That character wouldn't make his debut until the Dreamcast era. So, that remains to be seen. What do you think? Where do you think they could take the story of Sonic 4 to kind of borrow from all the different Sonic canons to kind of deliver something great? Let me know in the comments.